Lorraine Taylor, a Democratic council nominee, was campaigning alongside Taylor Clark, Sylvia King, and Jasmine LaRue. She had some comments that she made about transparency. Let's take a look.
And it's not easy when you're in Johnstown because you don't know what services you can get. I'm running because I sat back and I complained like everybody else. Johnstown don't have this. Johnstown doesn't have this. We don't have this. And come to find out I was incorrect. We have a lot of services and there's a lot going on. And I was running initially because I kept saying we need transparency. No, we don't need transparency because it's transparent enough. What we need is clarification. People don't understand what there is out there because there's so much.
It's absolutely mind-boggling and scary to me that we're going to confuse the transparency issues in the city for availability of programs to help businesses start. We have a lot of problems with transparency in this city, and for anybody running for a city that I have to live in that says the city of Johnstown, with all of its corruption and problems, is transparent enough, that's a red flag. Just a red flag. But it's your vote. Since there is an obvious issue with what transparency is, we're going to circle back and we're going to talk about what transparency is and how the city is not being transparent and what that lack of transparency can result in. Corruption here in Johnstown is nothing new, and that's why transparency in our local government is so important. Let's talk about just some recent issues. Representative Frank Burns, here's the statement he put out about the $2 million that the JRA had to send back because they were playing games, and Dr. George Frem, who was going to start a clinic just down the block from me, a $3.8 million clinic, and they had $1.9 million. They had the JRA, which is appointed by the city council, had to send back because they delayed it and they did not do the work. And now they have asbestos money that Representative Frank Burns received, and they're moving forward and receive that money for the project with the Dr. Frem, and now they're moving forward and they're using that abatement money and they're going to market that building to somebody else. And I'm questioning who that someone else might be. You never know in this town. It might be someone's friend. But they sent back $1.9 million and a $4 million project for medical care in my area got scrapped. Transparency. Because without transparency, we have corruption. Let's talk about another topic of transparency. John D. Bartola filed a right-to-know request and received documents for Hope for Johnstown from the city because the city gives grants money to a lot of nonprofits, Hope for Johnstown being one of them. And guess what? Let's take a look at this letter. The city was notified by the PA Office of the State Inspector General because there was the findings are quite serious, they say. So the city is going to be owing money back because the Hope for Johnstown nonprofit, where you see Alan Cashall as the president, and I do believe Alan Cashall is a relative of mayoral candidate and sitting city council member Sylvia King. So there's that. But this Hope for Johnstown is the one that's also involved in the ticket scam scandal for out of Pittsburgh, where they're taking tickets that were intended for underprivileged and disabled children, and they were scalping them. So, yeah. The city should have came out with this letter. So, what's the transparency part? As soon as this happened, in June 29th of 2023, the city should have come out and been public with what was going on. It shouldn't be now in 25 that we get a right to know request answered and we have that information. This was almost 2 years ago here, or 2 years ago now, that this information was available through the city and we're just getting it now. This is transparency, and this should have been done 2 years ago, but it wasn't until we from the outside right to know requested it. From the inside, sitting on council having access to this type of information will be available to the public as soon as legally allowed to be available to the public. Okay, great. You say, how does transparency and stopping corruption benefit my everyday life in the city? Well, this is how. Corruption and Poverty, a review of the recent literature. It's older study, but the information, even on newer studies, is exactly the same because things haven't changed. Here's some highlights from the study. Increased corruption equals reduced economic growth and increased income inequalities, which increases poverty. Increased corruption also reduces governance capacity, which increases poverty. We'll move on to the conclusions here. So here's a list from the conclusions. Look at the links to corruption and poverty. We match a lot of those in the city of Johnstown. Transparency is the light that shines on the darkness of corruption. We don't have enough transparency here in the city of Johnstown, and to say otherwise is shocking. Remember to vote for the candidates who will bring you transparency. John DiBartola for mayor, and myself, Joe Taranto, for city council. Until next time.